Hey, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here to talk about some early season trade targets. Again, week 2 is a freaking disaster for a lot of fantasy owners, and you're scrambling here in the early parts of week 3 to try and figure out what you're going to do with your roster moving forward. Did 2 videos yesterday, an in-depth waiver wire video to give you some targets on the waiver wire that you should be taking a look at to help you get through these rough times, and then also kind of a breakdown of some different steps, different things that you should be taking a look at. And one of the things I talked about was waiting to make some trades until after you've hit the waiver wire. Well, with it being Tuesday now, waiver wires will start processing. You know, some leagues do them later tonight, some leagues will do them tomorrow morning, some leagues are Thursday morning. But I wanted to give you 6 early season trade targets that you should be keeping your eye on at running back and wide receiver. Now, I didn't include quarterback and tight end because a lot of guys you can still stream and find on the waiver wire right now. I don't want you going out and trading an embarrassment of riches to try and get a quarterback or a tight end. I don't agree with that at all. It's running back and wide receiver that we really need to focus on right now. So let's take a look at my targets and try to decide what will be the best fit for your team. All right, so first up is running back. And my number one running back to try and make a trade for right now is DEVIN Singletary. He's not going to cost you a whole lot right now. More than likely, the DEVIN Singletary owner is looking at it as, this was not a great investment. However, we got to dig a little bit deeper, Headliner Nation. That's what we tell you, right? For a lot of you that are new, to the channel, we do these in-depth videos in the off season. We don't get nearly as much chance to do these videos during the regular season when we're trying to get start and sit and rankings out and everything like that. So this is a little bit of a taste of what we do in the off season and why you should stick around all off season so you don't miss any of this information. But taking a look in depth at DEVIN Singletary, let's rank him against other running backs that have at least 50% of their team snaps. Why? Because we want guys that are the perfect mix of volume and efficiency. And DEVIN Singletary, under the radar right now, is doing a pretty good job of both. In terms of volume, his 10 targets are 3rd in the league, his 7 receptions are 4th, and his 43 receiving yards are 7th. So through 2 weeks, they're using him quite a bit in the passing game. But on a per touch efficiency basis, also not doing that bad. His .21 avoided tackles per attempt is 6th, and his .77 points per touch is 9th. So again, per touch basis doing fine, and then also on just a volume level doing fine as well in the passing game. But why is this important? Why is it important that he's been doing pretty well in the passing game, but maybe we haven't heard a whole lot about him yet? Well, that's because the Buffalo Bills have played the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins so far. They haven't really found themselves in game script that has needed to really utilize the running back position out of the backfield so far. Miami and New York, not the best defenses in the world. Yes, Miami gave Buffalo a little bit of run for their money, but they were able to really touch base with them down the field. They were able to utilize Diggs and Brown down the field, and they'll continue to do that. But now they've got matchups with the Rams, Las Vegas, Tennessee, and KC coming up. Teams that are going to push them even more in terms of scoring points. Buffalo isn't going to be able to just kind of sit back and run the football. They're going to have to expand the passing game a little bit more. And DEVIN Singletary is going to have a whole lot of room because the field is stretched with Diggs and Brown. So this is a team that really utilizes the deep ball and has 2 really good deep ball receivers. And with teams coming up that are probably going to be able to put up a little bit of points on them, they're going to have to utilize DEVIN Singletary a little bit more and a little bit more. Zach Moss, really to this point in the season, has been a non-factor. Kind of what we told you over the offseason. Yeah, not a bad football player, but he's not great either. Lacks a little bit in vision from what we've seen so far. Lacks explosiveness around the outside. He's not being used in the passing game. DEVIN Singletary is. You can probably get DEVIN Singletary super cheap right now if you wanted to. You could probably go out and get him for a wide receiver 2 or 3 that you don't even really need on your team. He has a little bit of running back depth for you. He's a guy who you could start as your running back 2 and in the flex. And coming up on some of these matchups will probably produce pretty well for you in a PPR and a half PPR league. Someone else that's probably going to cost you a little bit more, but you probably still could get it at a discount at this point, is David Johnson. David Johnson, yeah, he hasn't had the best start to the season so far. Had a really good week 1 against KC, came back to life last week with a really tough matchup, and that's why we're going to try and jump on this while maybe an owner is feeling a little bit down on him. Again, looking at running backs with at least 50% of their team snaps, because again, I want guys that are a mixture of volume and efficiency, all right? I don't want to be trading for guys that aren't getting a lot of touches right now. We are at a point in the season with all these injuries, we need guys that are getting touches. David Johnson's going to be one of those guys. Right now, his 8 targets are 5th, 6th in receiving yards, 2nd in average depth of targets. So they are taking a look at David Johnson in the passing game, not just running routes that are out into the flat. They are running true routes with David Johnson that are utilizing his pass catching ability. He's averaging 6 yards per target, 9.6 yards per reception, and 10.4 yards after the catch per reception. This is still the same David Johnson that is an elite pass catcher out of the backfield. Again, all of that there, volume and efficiency. On a per touch basis or per attempt basis, he is averaging over 5 yards per attempt right now, 4th in the league. He's averaging 0.26 fantasy points per snap, which is 9th, and he's averaging 1 point per touch, which is 3rd. Only CMC and Aaron Jones average more points per touch than David Johnson does right now. He's just, no one's even paying attention to him. And again, tough matchups to begin the year. KC, not a great matchup this past week in week 2. And he even has a tough matchup in week 3 against Pittsburgh. So right now you could go to the fantasy owner and be like, man, he's got Pittsburgh next. Just hasn't looked that great. But then after that, he gets a Minnesota defense that hasn't looked good. He gets a Jacksonville defense that hasn't looked good. Tennessee, pretty good defense. Green Bay, Jacksonville again, Cleveland, New England, Detroit, Indianapolis. I mean, heck, week 15 and 16, he ends with Indianapolis and Cincinnati. So if you're looking short-term and long-term, the schedule for David Johnson is going to get a lot better for him. Right now is the time to move, either right now or after Pittsburgh. Me personally, I'll go after him right now, but don't overpay. If you can't get him right now, wait until after Pittsburgh and then make your move. But the window's going to slam shut really, really quick. So you got to make a decision now. Is it this week or next week? You got to go get David Johnson. Another David that we should be taking a look at, David Montgomery from the Chicago Bears. David Montgomery still continues to, he doesn't get the best reviews, and I don't always understand why. If you watch his tape from the last couple of weeks, David Montgomery, after dealing with that injury to begin the season, looks really good. Among running backs that have at least 25 attempts this year, he has 146 yards on 29 attempts. But if you look at his 5.03 yards per attempt, it's 5th. If you look at his 3.48 yards after contact per attempt, it's 5th. He's also avoided 6 tackles in the first 2 weeks, which is 12th. And he has 0.47 fantasy points per touch, which is tied for 5th at the running back position. David Montgomery, I'm going to be doing a film breakdown on him, hopefully this week over on Patreon, to give our Patreon subscribers a little bit deeper look at David Johnson on a per touch basis, because again, he doesn't get a whole lot of love, and I don't always understand why. The David Johnson haters, the David Montgomery haters, don't really think that he is an athlete at the running back position. Well, he wasn't utilized that well last year. And for just paying Tariq Cohen, they really didn't utilize him at all last week. The Chicago Bears were also in a position where they were ahead in the game, so it was positive game script for Montgomery. It's a pretty good defense there in Chicago, so them being behind a whole lot this season, might not be that big of a stretch. David Montgomery might end up seeing more positive game script this year than what a lot of people had originally expected. So again, right now is the time to move on David Montgomery, because on a per touch basis, again, looking good. But in Chicago, he's going to get some of the volume. A lot of people right now are scared off because Cordarrelle Patterson continues to get touches out of the backfield. But again, if we are in positive game script, we're going to see more and more David Montgomery. And also, after having that injury issue in the preseason with his growing, he's back and he's fine. They've kind of ramped him up the first couple of weeks. Expect him to continue to be ramped up more and more. And I think Matt Nagy is finally seeing that, hey, we got to utilize David Montgomery a lot more. All right, so there are 3 running backs that you should be targeting right now if you need to make a trade to bring somebody in. But what about those wide receivers? What are 3 wide receivers we have our eye on right now? Well, number 1, A.J. Green from the Bengals. Now, the volume tells us that better times are ahead. Fantasy owners are down on A.J. Green after last week. But again, if you only look at the box score, of course you would be down. You got to be looking at it a little bit differently, though, ladies and gentlemen, like we always tell you here on the Fantasy Headliners. His 22 targets is second in the NFL right now, but he only has 8 receptions. That's going to change. If Joe Burrow keeps looking his way, he's going to start hauling in some of those catches. Okay, keep in mind, this isn't A.J. Green. Well, they missed a lot of time last year, right? So, only 2 weeks in, no preseason, kind of getting back into the flow of things. Didn't really have a chance to play in any game situations with his rookie quarterback. That's going to change. He's going to start hauling some of those in. His 8 deep targets, first in the NFL. And a deep target is a target that is 20 or more yards down the field. Well, they're looking his way down the field. He just hasn't been able to haul anything in as of yet. 36.4% of his targets have been deep so far. So they are trying to utilize him down the field. And Joe Burrow, through the first 2 weeks, has 97 passing attempts. That is the most in the NFL. I want to go get guys that are getting the volume and have the volume coming towards them, especially a guy like A.J. Green, because in a minute, he is going to change this, and he's going to start hauling in some of these catches. And with this type of volume, he should be a locked and loaded wide receiver 2 every single week. My next wide receiver that I'm going to be taking a look at, Keenan Allen from the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, week 1 with Tyrod Taylor left a lot to be desired, right? Or a little to be desired. Whatever the saying is, it doesn't matter. And week 1 with Tyrod Taylor just, wasn't the best week. But he's still seeing a lot of targets. 18 targets through 2 weeks. Ties him for 5th in the NFL. And again, right now the purpose of trading for Keenan Allen is we're getting out ahead of the game. With Keenan Allen, if we're making the move right now, we're making the move hoping that Justin Herbert takes over sooner rather than later. Now, Anthony Lynn is giving us all, that garbage right now. Blah, blah, blah. Tyrod Taylor's still our starter. What? Bro, could you not see how much better your offense was in week 2 with Justin Herbert there? Yeah, he's a rookie. He's going to make some mistakes. And even as a Tyrod Taylor supporter, I believe he's a fine NFL quarterback. I think he can get a job done. He's not one of the top 5, top 10, top 15, maybe not even top 20, but he can get a job done. But when you see the difference night and day in your offense from week 1 to week 2 and how you could spread it out and open it up with Justin Herbert, why wouldn't you stick with him? Now, right now, we don't know what's going to happen with Tyrod Taylor, right? The reason that Justin Herbert started last week was because Taylor, right before game time, started to have chest pains and some issues with breathing. Went to the hospital, ended up being fine, but there's no guarantee he's going to play in week 3. Right now, Anthony Lynn could just be saying all this, so teams have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. Who knows, okay? But use that to your advantage. Go to the Keenan Allen owner and try to get him now before Justin Herbert settles in officially as the starting quarterback. Again, the targets weren't that bad, but it was the receptions and what Keenan Allen did with the receptions. With Justin Herbert, they spread the offense open a little bit more. They were able to push the ball down the field a little bit better. 7 receptions, 96 yards. Way different than the 4 receptions, 37 yards. So Keenan Allen had a lot more space to work in after the catch, and that's what we want in our wide receivers. I love that in wide receivers, guys who get a lot of yards after the catch. Keenan Allen definitely can do that. One of the best route runners in the NFL. Get him now before Justin Herbert settles in as the number 1. My last target at wide receiver, Allen Robinson. Again, a lot of people talking about Allen Robinson right now, not loving the performance so far, but kind of like A.J. Green. He's getting a good amount of volume. He has 18 targets right now, which is tied for 5th in the NFL. And then his 6 deep targets are 2nd, but he only has 1 reception on those 6 deep targets. Again, just like A.J. Green, they're trying to go deep to him, and it's just not working right now. He has 35% of his targets deep. So they're trying to push the ball down the field to him. It just hasn't happened yet. We're not giving up on Allen Robinson. Okay? The volume is there. Pushing the ball down the field to him is there. It just hasn't translated to yards, production, touchdowns. It hasn't translated to that. However, he gets Atlanta and Indianapolis over the next 2 weeks. So if you're going to make a move, it has to be right now. Because Atlanta, well, they can't stop anybody. Okay? That third grade flag football team that plays at recess, they gave up 47 points to them. That's how bad Atlanta is right now. So get him right now before he plays Atlanta, before he plays Indianapolis, because the next 2 weeks could be big weeks for him. And I don't know what's gotten into Mitchell Trubisky, but the dude is all of a sudden playing like an NFL starter. So that even helps. That even helps. And they have some guys that are also contributing. Mooney on the outside is contributing a little bit more. Obviously, you have Anthony Miller there as well. Jimmy Graham, the veteran at tight end, hasn't done anything, okay, but he's a presence there still at least. They're utilizing the tight ends with Cole Kmet as well. And then, again, Tariq Cohen. So he's got plenty of weapons around him to help take some of that pressure off. So another option for you to take a shot at, especially if we're looking at guys that maybe haven't produced quite yet, but a lot of numbers, a lot of stats, the video, everything shows us that they could be doing a lot better very soon this season. So there you have it, Headliner Nation. 6 trade targets for you. Do me a favor, if you appreciate the information, make sure you hit that like button down below. Let me know in the comments, is there anybody that you're targeting right now that you want a little bit more about? Do you want some more information on them? You want to get my take? I'll try to get to as many as I possibly can. And then also, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Become a part of one of the largest fantasy sports community. Over 100,000 here on YouTube now for the Fantasy Headliners. So, Headliner Nation, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode.